Welcome to Teis Talks, where we discuss all things faith and family. Our topic today, why don't you share that with us, Matt?
The 10 Commandments of Community Engagement.
So important that we are involved as Christians in our community. And so we've asked Pastor Matt to come on and talk to us about how to get involved in the community. And I'm so glad that you're here. Tell us this. We're just going to go. You said 10 commandments, so we're just going to go step by step through each of these things that we can do to be involved. Every one of us can do something. Give us some hints.
So God's given us a wonderful opportunity to be part of this community. And I would say that the culture of our ministry changed to becoming a community church within the last 10 decades or so. Not 10 decades, 10 years, the last decade or 10 years.
100 years ago.
So whenever that change was happening, God's given us many opportunities to do 100 different activities, events, and become part of this community. And so people will ask, how do we do this? What is the things that you did? So I just thought with 10 different steps, ways that people can get involved with. And so when I'm teaching this, I call it the 10 Commandments of Community Engagement.
Well, this is so important because people will ask me, wow, you guys are involved in so many things. And they ask me, how do we get involved? And I say, ask my brother.
On the other hand, I have preachers who say, "Oh, well, we're separated, and we don't want to get our hands dirty in these things." And do you believe in separation? Do you still believe in holiness? And of course we do. Jesus believed in holiness, and he left heaven to come down and get involved in the community.
That's good. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us.
That's exactly
And we
right.
beheld his glory, the glory full of grace and truth. And I think that's a good place to demonstrate that God wants us to be 100% grace, 100% truth. And so in your context, you're going to have to find where God wants you to serve, how he wants you to serve. There'll be certain things that we might do here that you're uncomfortable with, and there'll be other things that you might take a step farther than we're comfortable with, but it always has to be based upon, I'm full of grace, I'm full of truth, because that's what Jesus did when he interacted with his community.
I think, too, there's going to be times that you're going to do things that you may be a little bit uncomfortable with yourself, because you're saying, okay, biblically, there's nothing that this isn't unchristian. It's just culturally, it hasn't been something I've done before.
Yeah, and that's so good. And I think it's important to even step out of your comfort zone. So for tomorrow, I will be at UNLV doing an interfaith symposium on Christian liberty and human dignity. I've never done anything like that before. And yet I'm speaking as the lone evangelical with a bunch of other faith leaders in our community speaking on those two topics.
That's amazing.
Very uncomfortable with that.
I was invited to a Methodist church, a United Methodist church, where the preacher did not believe in salvation by grace through faith, and he wanted me to talk about, this was 35 years ago, 40 years ago. He said, I just want you to come and talk about why fundamental Christians are getting involved in politics. And that was during the Reagan administration. In fact, he was running for his second term at that time. And I walked in. I felt like a sheep in the midst of wolves. Wait a minute. That's where Jesus said he was sending us.
That's exactly where he wants us to be.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to engage your community, here's 10 commandments for that engagement. Number one, you need to know the needs of your community. What is the thing that is pressing? So as Bible believers, we believe that the number one need for every single person is a relationship with Jesus Christ. We're all sinners. That's why Jesus came, was crucified, buried, and rose again to pay for our sins. But Jesus also used the specific needs of individuals to share that liberating truth. So there was a time whenever he used 5 loaves and 2 fishes so that he could communicate to thousands. There was a time whenever he spat on the ground, and for whatever reason, he put the mud on the guy's eyes and allowed him to see with fuzziness, and then he allows him to see with clarity. So what is the specific need? Is it a blind person? Is it a lame person? Is there violence? Is there a lack of education? I have a friend who pastors not far from here. He's passed away. His name was Dr. Fowler. When he came to this community, he recognized that many of the people in his demographic had not graduated from high school, which was keeping their wages low, and lower wages was increasing violent crime in his community. So he decided that on Tuesday nights, they would have a GED program to help get the people in his neighborhood a GED so that they could have higher paying jobs, so they would have a skill set.
I didn't even know that.
And he said that through that, it helped him to reach his people. And in reaching those people, the wages went up, the crime went down, and it allowed him to share Jesus Christ with folks. So my challenge is this: what are the needs of your community? For instance, 10 years ago, the police department told us 2 blocks east of our ministry was the most violent area in the entire city of Las Vegas. Wow, that's a big deal. If that's happening 2 blocks from our ministry and we're Salt and Light, maybe we should engage that. And so because of that initiative, we were able to connect with institutional stakeholders, nonprofits, our police department, politicians, corporations in the city that helped us to engage. And through that initiative, we were able to see, because people came out and painted faces and made balloon animals and served cheap hot dogs and gave away Nintendo game systems, we were able to see violent crime go down 75%. We saw calls for service to the police department go down 27%. But it was somebody making us aware of the specific need of our community. So if you're in Nebraska, you might have a different need if you're in North Platte than you are in Omaha. If you're in Minneapolis, you're going to have a different need than somebody in Des Moines. But wherever those needs are, how will you engage and meet that specific need? And if you don't know what that need is, then it's time for you to start talking to the people of your community and find out.
Leaders, yeah.
Number 2, you have to understand who the players are. So just like any event, if you don't know who's important, if you are a basketball fan, you know who LeBron James is. If you're a baseball fan, he's a guy who plays basketball for the Los Angeles Lakers. It's very good. If you're a baseball fan, you'll know who certain players are. You've got to know who the players are so that you can know the rules. Notice this. Jesus knew the rules. He figured out the rules. He played the game. He won the game, and then he changed the rules. So in every situation, there are rules, there are players. And if you don't know how to play the game, if you're playing chess, it's different than checkers. If you're playing basketball, it's different than football. If you're playing to reach your community, Las Vegas is different than Virginia Beach. So who are the players? What are the rules for your community? For instance, our police department is the 8th largest police department in the United States of America. Most police departments our size have to report to a mayor. Our police department doesn't report to a mayor. So if you want to have action with a police department in many municipalities, you have to connect with that mayor, because the political pressure upon that mayor is going to move things, but not in our police department. Our sheriff is the top elected official who is a peer and oftentimes will have more weight or more opportunity than our mayor in the city of Las Vegas. And so knowing who the people are and knowing how to interact with those people, knowing what the rules are. So if you want to change an election, if you want to elect somebody, if you want to be involved with changing a law or driving the votes to a certain thing, you better know the rules, because if you don't know the rules and you don't know the players, you're just an outsider playing checkers while everybody else is playing chess. Rule number 1 is engage your community. Know the needs. Number 2 is meet the players. Number 3, then volunteer. I'm here to serve. Because you don't have money as a church. Our ministry is like your ministry, and
We're like Peter, silver and gold have I none.
oh, isn't that so good? But such as I have, give I thee.
What I can give, I'll give.
So this is where you have an opportunity to serve. You can volunteer. So in your police department, you have people that can paint faces. You have people that can manage a bounce house. You have people that can register and cook hot dogs. They might not have a whole lot of money, and many of their excess funds are being directed to tithes and missions in your church, but you can mobilize an army. And in that mobilization, you can bring 30, 40, 50, maybe 100, depending on the size of your church, to a community cleanup day, to a backpack giveaway, to something. And this is where I challenge you to look. Get on your police department's Facebook pages, look at their Instagram accounts, and see where the mayoral candidate or the person who's the city council member of your city, find out what program they're involved this weekend because almost every weekend they've got some type of 5K, some type of backpack, some type of homeless, some type of raise awareness for this program. Find the program where you can help and say, we're here to help.
And this gives your church visibility. You want to see people coming to your church? It gives people your church visibility, which you need in order to impact your culture.
And not only that, it's disciple making. So you are giving your people a tangible way to exercise their faith as a disciple of Jesus Christ. So painting the face of a little kid is truly making a disciple of the person volunteering, and they can share the gospel, they can invite to church. You are building disciples through these community engagements.
You're giving people an opportunity to serve. That is so key. That is so key. People ask me, like, why was the bus ministry so big in the 1970s? It was big in the 1970s because it gave the average person in the church the opportunity to reach out to someone they felt they could reach out. They could do something. And we are, through what you're saying, we're giving people within Liberty Baptist Church, and you can within your church, the opportunity to serve when they would say, I don't teach, I don't sing in the choir, what can I do? Here's what you can do.
Yeah, you can pass out a water bottle at a 5K.
That's right.
And in doing so, you are giving of yourself, which is great. Commandment number 4, go the extra mile. Matthew 5:41 says, Jesus says to his disciples, if you're compelled to go with them 1 mile, go with them twain. This is where if we are asked to do something by a community leader, by a police officer, if we're asked to do something, we're not just going to do it to where it passes. We're going to go the extra mile. We're going to bring, if they ask for hot dogs, we're going to bring hamburgers and hot dogs and bags of chips. If they ask for volunteers, we're going to bring, if they're asking for prizes, we'll bring a PlayStation. So we're going to go the extra mile because Jesus said, don't just go with them 1 mile, go with them 2. And I believe that reflects that when we serve, we are going to serve with great affluence. We're going to serve with great vigor. We're going to give it our all in the same way we would want it done to us. Commandment number 5, always share Jesus. You are not there to be a humanitarian aid relief. You are there to shine as a light for Jesus Christ. And if they will inhibit you from sharing Jesus, if you can't pass out flyers for your church, then that's not a thing that you need to participate in. You've got other places because your first directive doesn't get compromised by the second directive to serve people. Your first directive is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and all your mind. And the second is love your neighbor as yourself. If you can't do your first, you can't do the second. So if somebody puts a restraint on you to say, oh, you can't talk about Jesus, or we don't want you talking about the Lord, or passing out flyers to your church, then that's not an activity you want to participate in.
That's good because I'll have independent Baptist preachers say to me, well, we're independent and Baptists, we're separated and we can't get involved in that kind of stuff. We can't, that's a social gospel. No, that's getting involved in society so that you can share the gospel, and your only purpose for doing this is to do what Jesus told you to do, and that is to give the gospel as in any way you possibly can. Great point, Matt.
Commandment number 6 is be willing to be used. One, I think of this whenever we had brought 100 volunteers to a specific event, and all of the local media was present, and people who had only brought themselves and one other got all of the news coverage and got all of the FaceTime in front of the cameras. And I was very upset watching the news that night with my wife, and I said, they didn't say one thing about our church. And my wife said, well, if you were trying to make people know about our church, then we failed. But if you were out there serving Jesus, you did a good job. And I thought, well, that's pretty good.
I remember you telling that story. She also said, isn't that what we were made for, to be used?
Yes.
And I thought, it stuck in my heart for a long time.
Somebody said one time that I don't mind being a servant as long as they're not treating me like a servant.
Right.
And that is so much the way our flesh is. But man, we need to serve because we're serving Jesus.
And if you serve, you will always find recognition. And it's just the way it is. We've had more opportunities for interviews. We turned down interviews for local media, for especially during COVID. Every week there was a specific reporter that would call asking for insights or asking for questions or quotes, to where we have to turn things away. So you'll never be relegated to the sidelines. But at first, you just have to be willing to be served. Jesus came to be a servant, to minister to others. And that's what you do. You just go and serve. Number 7, commandment 7 is start small. So some of the things that we're doing tomorrow, we will be at UNLV at a symposium there on campus discussing with some of the leaders of our community the importance of faith and religion. That's a big deal. Next month, we will be in the governor's mansion. We will also next month be in Carson City ministering to all of the officers who have been who've lost their life and their families this past year in the state of Nevada. We've had unprecedented access to senator candidates, congressional candidates. Just last month, every single Republican vying for a spot on a ticket in the GOP in the state of Nevada was in our church for an entire day. So we've had unprecedented opportunity to influence folks, but it started by face painting. And face painting, I think, changes the world. People being willing to go out and I'm not a good face painter. I have 3 things that I'll paint your face. You can either have a worm, a snake, or an eel. I'll paint that on your face every single time. But if you are able to have the servant spirit and say, okay, we'll start small. We're going to give out backpacks. We've been able to work with the Las Vegas Raiders. They gave us $100 a kid to go with 50 kids to Walmart. That's cool. Never thought that would have happened when we were doing this 10 years ago. The Golden Knights, our Stanley Cup champion NHL professional hockey team, has given us thousands of dollars to invest in young people. We have Bible clubs each and every week in places where we would have never had opportunity. Through those things, we now have Bible clubs that have blossomed and grown to where now the director of CEF is a member of our church. Yeah. And he is week over week and over week, he's blossoming new Bible clubs where the gospel of Jesus Christ is being done.
And he was saved in our church, baptized in our church, and grown in our church, and then he got involved as a disciple out of our church with CEF, and they asked him to become the director.
Yep, and some of his first work was picking up homeless people in a church van with the police department on the Las Vegas Strip.
Yeah, that's starting small.
It starts small, and that's the point. You have no idea the influence and the opportunities God will give you. But if you're not willing to do the small things like go pick up trash, remove graffiti, paint faces on kids, and be present, then you have no place to speak. Jesus said, he that is faithful with that which is least shall be faithful with that which is great. So start small, be willing. That's commandment 7. We have 3 more. Number 8, be willing to meet new people. This is the hard one, because you will be in environments where people with different lifestyles, with different political parties, we often live in an echo chamber where we only talk to people who think and act the exact same way we do.
That's the life of a homeschool mom.
That is the life of a homeschool mom until she takes her kids to a public school and she sees kids, 30, 40 kids like you do on a week-by-week basis who come from varied backgrounds, varied cultures, sometimes with same-sex parents. And now you're ministering to them and it gives you an opportunity. You're going to have to step out. And I think, Dad, you taught us as young kids that we are missionaries and our job is to engage these people, not to live in a silo. And I think there's a delicate balance between protectionism and evangelism. But I think that God's called us to go out and meet new people. And that's an important thing. How can we reach people? We're not by blasting them on our social media accounts isn't how we're going to reach them. The way we're going to reach people is by showing the love of Jesus. Again, the word became what? Flesh. So Jesus left where he was, left that protection, the glory, so that he could get his hands dirty with people.
It's not about ascension, it's about condescension, coming down to where people are.
Commandment number 9, we're almost there. It's you be you. So you don't have to be a professional athlete to work with professional athletes. You don't have to be a magician. You don't have to be a politician. If God's called you, you be a homeschool mom, you be a pastor, you be a Las Vegas native. That's what things that I resonate with. That's a story I can tell. You have your story. You don't have to be the cool guy. You don't have to get a new pair of Jordans so that you can interact. You don't have to pierce your ear or tattoo your forehead.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, to interact with these divergent people groups. You be you. And I think Jesus, he came, he dwelt among them, but he wasn't somebody who was compromising his very identity. And so I think people look for authenticity. And if we're trying to be the cool guy using these words, or one of my least favorite things is when Harrison Ford got an earring.
Oh, yeah.
I remember seeing him get an earring, and I remember Indy.
That's
and
not the cool
that's not,
man.
why did you do that?
What happened to the manly man you
Here's
were?
a 55-year-old guy who, with all this respect, getting an earring. That is not, that's not how this happens. It's because it's not what we're expecting. Well, if you're a Bible-believing Christian, you can fit the mold of what a Bible-believing Christian is. And we're varied. We're all different.
Right.
But you don't have to, you be you. And then number 10, do what works. So you do what works. What is working? Is this working? Can this accomplish a path? Is this accomplishing something? If it's not working, get rid of it and experiment with 100 different things. You might not have a world champion NHL hockey team, Stanley Cup, Las Vegas Golden Knights, but you might have a AA team that you could work with. You have somebody that you can work with. You might not have influence in a senator's office, but you can know a state senator. So where can you work and find? And if it doesn't work, pitch that idea and go someplace next. If giving out backpacks isn't helping you, then find something that does. If painting faces doesn't, go with what works.
It does start small because I remember when I was intimidated walking into city councilman's office or a county commissioner's office. Now they come to our offices, and it's you just have to work where you are and be, as you said, who you are, and just trust God to take you where He wants you to be, because we're here doing His work, not ours.
And being genuine, having real relations. And I think, too, you save, this isn't on there, but I would say save your credibility. You are storing up credit. And do you want to burn that credit for the dog catcher bill? Do you want to burn that credit? What is the thing that you really value? And for me, the thing that we really value most is the gospel of Jesus Christ. We will burn, during COVID, we were willing to burn all of our credit that we had ever established for the sake of churches opening up. We were willing to do that. We weren't willing to do that for Awana, but we were for churches opening up on Sundays. That was something we were willing to burn all of our credit. Everything that we did, we threw it against the wall and said, will this work? And it did work, because the person who we were backing against the COVID restrictions eventually would help flip that state. And so God's given us opportunities.
Wow, this was so good. It was so helpful for anybody in the Christian community. This was really helpful knowing how to engage. Thank you, Matt. We really appreciated this today. And thank you for listening. Remember, this is Teis Talks.
And it's more than a conversation.
Bye.